I remember the one and only question that ever came out of his mouth. If he said anything else before it or after it, I really don't remember. The only thing I heard was, well, how will I know if she's cheating on me?
We may look different and live in different countries, yet our stories are knitted with the same threads of excitement, uncertainties, challenges, and victories. As we journey through the ups and downs of life, it is our undeniable will and God's strength that propel us to joy after pain, smile after frowns, and ups after downs. We were born to win. We were destined to greatness. We are overcomers. Welcome to GodScoop's raw and unedited stories. Welcome to Raw and Unedited Stories, where stories are told to uplift, encourage, and brighten your day. For those who have already subscribed, thank you for helping us share great and uplifting stories. And those who have not, now is the time to do so. With us today is a woman who has been living with lupus, and you know this can be a real challenging ordeal or journey. And she has conquered and has soared above the challenges with this disease. She's an entrepreneur, a model, and a woman of God. Welcome, Nanette, to Raw
Hi,
and Hey,
how
welcome.
are you?
I
Thank
am
you.
great. Welcome to Raw and Unedited Stories on God's Scoop. Thank you for agreeing to share your stories with our audience. And we can't wait to hear about your journey. Now, Nanette, before you
Mhm.
begin to tell your story, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and all of that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nanette Rhodesia Swain. I am in the Bronx, New York, USA, United States. I am 70 years old. I'm a model, an entrepreneur. I do work a 9 to 5. I'm also a mammography technologist at a company here, at a radiology company here in the Bronx. And yes, I have lupus.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. 70. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I
It's a
cannot.
shock for everyone.
Yes, it is a shock. Well, talk to us, talk to our viewers, our listeners about your story.
My story, wow, where do I begin? First, let me kind of give a background on what lupus is. Lupus is an autoimmune deficiency. Unlike, a simple cold, which, we're told from time to time we have, it's an autoimmune deficiency where your body is making too many antigens, not antibodies, to fight off diseases that attack the body. Um, I've been dealing with it since 1991. Since 1991. And how it came to be was I was at a friend's house. It was back in 1991. We were at a friend's house on Far Rockaway. It was, I believe, Valentine's weekend. And we were all there just celebrating. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it seemed that, I was like, oh my God, I don't feel good. I was sweating bullets. I couldn't breathe. And mind you, back then, 1991, the temperatures were like the temperatures are now. We were by the water. The building we were in was by the water. It was freezing, freezing cold. And I was like, you got to open the window. You got to open the window. I cannot breathe. And I'm profusely sweating. Not just, I'm profusely sweating. It's like, get me a towel. Something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my friend, I can't stay. I can't stay. I got to go. And at that time, I was living in Harlem. So I drove myself from Far Rockaway to Harlem. And on my way home, it seemingly got worse. So I went to the emergency room at Harlem Hospital. And when I got there, by the time I got there, my temperature was like 102, 103 degrees. And they went through this series of tests in the emergency room. They couldn't find anything wrong. Then they admitted me into the hospital. They still couldn't find anything wrong. I was there, I think, for roughly a week or more. And all they could say to me is, have you traveled outside of the country? Well, at that time, I hadn't been anywhere. Years prior, I mean, years prior, maybe 20 years prior, I had lived out of the country because I was married to a military man, and we lived in various places outside of the United States. But we're talking 1991, so I hadn't been any place since 1974, 75. So to answer the question to them was like, yeah, but, that was 20 years ago.
Mm.
And at the time I was working my regular 9 to 5 as a X-ray tech, a mammography technologist. And I was working with this gentleman, this radiologist, and he was, I shared with him my story, and he was like, well, maybe you just need to see somebody other than a regular general practitioner. And I was like, who would I go to? And it was the first time I ever heard the words rheumatologist and immunologist.
Mm-hmm.
Never knew who they were before then. After a battery of tests and blood tests and, oh my God, a whole lot of, I don't know, I can't even recall half the things they did to me. The final diagnosis was, you have lupus. I was like, what? What's that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I learned that, I had lupus and that it's an autoimmune deficiency that can be brought about by a number of things, not, all of a sudden you've got it. It can be attributed to the environment. It can be genetic. It can be attributed to pregnancies, medication. It comes with a lot of factors depending upon what you're dealing with. Now, lupus in and of itself comes with systemic lupus, discoid, skin, kidney, brain, spinal, nervous system. It depends upon what you're dealing with, how they will treat you or handle you. Because actually the treatment, I think, is far worse than the disease. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So they decided, well, you know what, we're going to put you on this medication. It's a steroid. Never done any kind of drugs in my life. Not that, steroid is a bad drug, but had never done any kind of drugs in my life to say that I'm going to, put this new thing
Right.
into my body. And it's also treated with chemotherapy. Now, let me sidebar here. I have a first cousin who also has lupus. She and I are about 5 years difference in age. And her reaction to lupus is far different from my reaction to lupus. And that would go for anyone based on, and I'm saying this, based on your lifestyle. We live two different lifestyles. So once they put me on the steroids and began this process of chemotherapy, I think I tried that for all of 6 to 9 months. I was like, I can't do this. I really can't. Because the fact of the matter is, for me, it made me feel worse than the condition itself. Being on the steroids, I was on this cycle of take it for like 30 to 60 days on, then you're 30 days off, then you're another 30 to 60 days. I felt like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
And
I would blow up. Huh?
Nanette, let's backtrack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When you started taking the steroids, did it alter your appearance at all? And
Yes, it did.
what was happening with you psychologically?
Psychologically, first being diagnosed, I was in total denial. I mean, okay, so you say I got it. I mean, all right. Because initially, at first, they were telling me, oh, you have the flu. Then they tried to tell me I had AIDS. I know the devil is a liar.
Yeah.
But psychologically, it's a whole lot to deal with, because it's now, how do you live your life knowing that you're autoimmune, and the least little thing that comes your way, you're subject to it? I mean, how do you go through life doing that? I know a number of people, a number of ladies, a number of men. Men can get lupus too. Don't be deceived and think it's just something that women have. Like, when they say breast cancer, men think it's only for women. But a number of us living with lupus, it alters our perspective on life and how do we live life? What do we do? How do we have relationships that'll be functional? You know, how do you function in a relationship if you're already married to someone and then discover, oh my God, now I've got lupus. How does that affect my relationship with my husband, my wife, my partner? Because your partner plays a great part in your dealing with, living with the condition.
And your well-being, of course.
And your well-being. A lot of people that I know have had their partners walk away from them because it's not something everyone can handle. It really isn't. Since being diagnosed, I've had a few relationships, and I tell everybody, do your homework because I'm not easy, and it's not that it's not that I'm difficult as a person. It's just that what I'm living with is difficult. And you need to be strong enough to handle it for me when I cannot handle it for myself. I need you to be the kind of person who wouldn't mind going the extra mile for me, who wouldn't mind giving the extra, or baby, what can I get you? I see you're not doing well. But most of all, I need you to be the man of God that would pray for me in my time of need when I can't get there myself. Even today, forgive me, even today, with the weather being as it is, I'm struggling. I got up at 5:30, I laid back down at 7:30, and I woke up again at 11:30, almost 12 o'clock. There have been times when my body is fighting against itself. I can sleep for 12, 14, 16, 24 hours straight, and then where's the help in that? You know what I mean? Where's the person who's supposed to be my helpmate, my provider, my protector? I haven't had, honestly, I haven't had a viable relationship. And I'm not going to say just because of that, but I know it's one of the many factors that keeps people from wanting to get close to me. Because I can't tell you when it's going to happen, when a flare is going to happen. It just can happen.
Talk about your relationship with your family as well, and the support that they give, and how difficult that is.
When I was first diagnosed, and I told my mom, I stayed in denial for a good year before I told my family. But when I told my mother, who has passed since, her thing was, oh my God, did I give this to you? I'm like, Ma, no. As far as I know, no. That was back then. But when I look back at it, again, remember, one of the contributing factors to it can be hereditary. Can be. So when I told her, my mom being a praying woman, a prayer warrior, an intercessor, she continuously prayed for me. As for the support of the rest of my family, I have an older sister and a younger brother. They're supportive, but, again, when stuff happens, there's just no one here for me. I have children, but they live their own lives. So, again, when stuff happens, there's just no one here for me. I have some spiritual sisters, some spiritual brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. And all I do is, I don't speak much about it. All I simply say is, pray for me.
So
and those who know me, and those who know me and understand me know that when I'm saying pray for me, I'm in a not a dark place, but a rough place.
Yes. You get by though, because you wear so many hats. How do you get by? How do you get by with all these episodes and just the lack of support that you need? Let's talk about that, because I'm sure there are many who are listening to you, or who will be listening to you, who are experiencing the same. Let's talk to that.
How do I get by? I don't think I'm just getting by. I call myself a survivor, a warrior. And I don't look at myself as just getting by. If I were just getting by, I would be in a corner someplace just boo-hooing all the time. But God has been my strength throughout the whole ordeal. Again, I was diagnosed in 1991, 1992. So we're talking 40 plus years or more, close to 40. Well, God has just been my strength, my provider, my, all the quote unquote spiritual cliches, the lifter of my head when I'm down. And when I feel like I can't do anything else, he's the one I go to. Again, I go to my family, but there's so much they can do as
Yes.
human beings, because there is no cure for this. There's no cure. I don't care. Everybody goes, "Oh, well, you don't look like you have lupus." What am I supposed to look like? I don't get that part. But what am I supposed to look like? If I were to wear what I feel like on my face, then I would be down and out and morbid, looking 24/7. But God has been my strength. Those who, like I said, those who know me and know what I'm dealing with, when I simply say, pray for me, they understand what I'm going through. They're there for me spiritually. And that's my way of getting by, if you want to call it. But I press more than I get by. I push more than I get by. I focus more than I just get by. Because if I dwelt on what I'm dealing with, again, I would not move. I know a number of people dealing with this condition who cannot go to work. They can't go to work. They don't go outside. They don't socialize. They don't interact or engage with the world outside of their world of living with lupus. And for me, that's not healthy. Mentally, that's not healthy. It can't be healthy.
Yes. And I hear strength. And I thank you for clarifying the point, getting by. You don't just get by. You are a fighter. You press forward. And I want to ask you to talk to us about a day in Nanette's life. A day in Nanette's life when you are struggling, when you're at the bottom, and you get up and you go to work, and you get up and you get your business floating above waters. Let's talk about that journey.
Okay, a day in my life when I get up and go to work. All right. That in and of itself is a struggle in dealing with lupus as well, because my day can begin as early as 5 o'clock in the morning with my regular 9 to 5. And that's Monday through Thursday. And then on the weekends, I'm dealing with the fashion industry in terms of I'm either the model or the model coordinator or the backstage assistant coordinator or the designer assistant. It's a whole lot of things going on with me. As I said, because I'm the CEO of D.I.V.A.A Casting Networks and Production. And that's D to the I to the V to the A to the A. And let me just kind of elaborate on that. The name Diva came to be several years ago, at least 25 years ago. I'm born and raised in a Pentecostal church. And as a teenager, I was always fascinated with clothes, fashion, style, before, I got into even thinking about being a model. And there was a weekend where we had this revival, a youth revival, and this evangelist, his name is Jerome Thomas, who's now an associate pastor at Soul Saving Station in Harlem. He came to visit us from South Carolina. And I'm sitting in church on a Friday night, like all the other young people. And he called me out. And I was like, okay, I'm not going up there. I don't know what this man wants from me. I never met him before in my life. What's he want? And when I got to the aisle, he spoke life into me. I had to be about that time, 15, 16. But he spoke life into me. And he said, God is going to take you before great men and women. You like fashion, but I see God taking you before great men, great women. He will take you places, open doors for you. And he said, he spoke the word diva. And at that time, it just didn't sink in with me. And I was like, okay, diva, 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 diva. All right. Years passed, forgot about fashion, went on to do something else with my life. And then I was in my late 30s, early 40s. Yeah, I was about 41, 42 when I got into fashion. And diva kind of stuck with me. So I'm like, how do I work this? Where is it going with this? And 2016, late 2016, God gave me divinely inspired, victoriously anointed, and appointed. And that's how Diva came to be.
Praise God. Nanette, you are such a motivator for so many women. There are women who are not sick. They don't have lupus. They don't have anything. And at your age, they have just given up on life and just, but you are fighting with the disease of
Mhm.
lupus, and you're getting up and you're motivating others, and you are pressing forward at 70. My goodness, that's phenomenal. Talk to us about someone in your life who is your main motivator, a friend. And I know the Lord is your backbone. You're close to the Lord through your struggles. And because of your struggles, you are a stronger person in the Lord. Am I correct?
Amen.
Talk to us about the persons that He has placed in your life as your main motivators.
There have been two, and I say there have been because they've both transitioned. Um, the first one was my mother.
Mm-hmm.
She was my, oh my God, she was my best friend, my best friend. Um, as my natural mother, she was always there for me in my hardest times as a teenager. I was kind of rebellious when I was a teenager, let's be honest. I mean, hey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even in my rebellion and being saved, she was still there for me, constantly praying and encouraging me to do me without being, how should I say, without being too rebellious. I mean, I had a rebellious spirit. I'm not going to lie. I still do. I do not conform to. I do not conform to what most church folks think I should, especially in the fashion industry. And I say that because I've encountered from the church, from a number of church folks that I've known all of my life. Well, you're a model. What does God say about you being a model?
Mm.
You're showing your body. You're wearing a bathing suit. You're wearing this and you're wearing that. You're on social media and you're doing. Look, no, not stop. You're talking to the wrong one. You are talking to the wrong one. If God did not want me to do what I am doing, He would not have given me diva. That's
Yes.
one. Two, as women, as women, being in the church does not mean you have to wear a frumpy gown, look like you just woke up first thing in the morning and simply just washed your face and
Mm-hmm.
go to church day after day after day after day. Forgive me, God, I do mean what I'm saying. I've had the experience. You know, when I was growing up, even like I said, even before getting into fashion, church folks were very critical of the way that I dressed because, again, I did not conform. I wasn't about to wear a dress to my knees, I mean, to my ankles, and a collar up to my neck where I couldn't breathe and or talk. I think women should be beautiful. The Bible doesn't talk about Esther being ugly. The
Right.
Bible doesn't talk about Ruth being ugly, nor does it talk about Deborah. These were women of godliness, and yet they were women nonetheless. And
Women
being a
of
woman,
beauty. Women
huh?
of beautiful
Yes,
women. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember times being in church where, again, remember I had a little bit of a rebellious spirit. Um, to wear braids in the choir was a no-no. To wear red fingernail polish was a no-no. One time, one time I remember I went to church. This was a while ago, y'all. And they said we had to wear black and white. And I'm like, okay, I got this. I got this. I wore a white blouse, a white shirt collar looking thing, but I put a tie to it. Yes, I did. I
Mm.
put a tie to it. And I remember being told you have to sit down because you have on a tie. Well, okay. Why? Explain to me why, other than the fact that I have on a tie. You said black and white. My skirt is black, my shirt is white, my accent is a black tie, kind of like an ascot.
Mm-hmm.
But no one could give me a logical explanation. Then, like I said, there was a time when I came in with braids in my hair and I was told I had to be seated. I couldn't sing with the choir. Why? And give me a reason. Nothing in the Bible said that I couldn't do that. It just said I couldn't wear men's apparel.
Mm. Right.
That I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't wear men's apparel. But it didn't say I couldn't be a woman. It didn't say I couldn't adorn my hair. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't say that I couldn't wear makeup. It didn't say I couldn't present myself as a feminine entity,
Mm-hmm.
as a woman. The Bible doesn't say that. And
Mm-hmm.
yet the church takes that mm,
To another extreme.
to an extreme,
So
to a total extreme,
I think
to where you lose a lot of women,
yes,
young
yeah.
women in the church. You lose them because, first of all, God said to come as you are. And then, second of all, they keep preaching and teaching. Forgive me, dear God, do not strike me. They keep preaching and teaching. Let the Holy Ghost do the conviction. And yet, there will always be this one, maybe two or three group of senior mothers in the church who will chastise you, um, almost degrade you, demean you into, well, you can't wear that. Your skirt needs to be below your knees. And when you sit down, you must sit like a lady. And everybody coming in the church ain't with that. There's
Mm-hmm.
just not. There's a grooming that has to take place. Even for those who are born and raised in the church, young ladies being born and raised in the church is all they know, but they're still young ladies and they still have a personality of their own. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a grooming, there's a finesse to grooming a
Yes.
woman, a young
Mm.
lady, to become the woman of God in the
Right.
eyes of man. And the rest of it is truly up to God.
Mm-hmm.
The
And
rest of it is truly up to God.
and so I'm hearing that our modesty needs to be geared in the biblically, right? Not necessarily through
Church
um,
doctrine.
man-made doctrine, but
Church doctrine.
modesty, because
Man's church. Mm-hmm.
modesty is
Mm-hmm.
really, we can look beautiful and dress modestly, but the way we look should not be, what glorifies God. We should make sure it glorifies God and not just glorify us, but glorifies God.
Exactly.
And yes, so I do understand, and I really appreciate, even at 70, you're looking so beautiful and
Thank
modest
you.
and classy, and that's what we want to teach girls, young girls, to take care of
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and we need not to take it to the next extreme. And talk to us about your relationships with men who tried to walk with you through your journey and just gave up.
Men are big babies. I've come to learn that. A lot of men, and again, I'm not demeaning men as men in their manhood. It's just that some men are not built to handle stress. Um, I won't call it confusion, but when there's an interruption in the norm of their life, they kind of just flake. It's like, oh my God, really? I thought you said you loved me. And you said you would love me no matter what. When
Mhm.
you get married, you take the vows for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do you part. And I got married early.
Mhm.
I was 17 when I got married. And I remember one of my first struggles. after getting married and having my daughter, she was my second child, was, I'm gonna be a little bit graphic. I started what seemed like a natural period back then. And at that time, again, he was in the military and we were living in Japan. We were on Okinawa, Japan. And I started what seemed like a natural period. And it was like, okay. But then it lasted for several months.
Mm.
And I was like, all right, this isn't normal. And him being in the military, we went to a military doctor, and the general consensus was, I have endometriosis. Well, what in the world is that? It's explained to me, endometriosis, for the women who don't really understand, because a lot of you are dealing with it and may not realize it. It's a condition of the body. It's also part and parcel of lupus, but not for everyone. It's not an indication of lupus for everyone. But it's a condition of the body where your body is making more epithelial tissue, which lines most of your internal organs. And it causes your organs to stick together like flypaper.
Mm-hmm.
It affects your uterus. It affects your ovaries. And it creates this, for some ladies, for me, it was creating this thing where the passage of my ovaries at the time of ovulation was tearing down the wall of my uterus, creating this scar tissue effect inside my uterus and on my ovaries.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason for the continuous bleeding of a period. And so in speaking to the doctors there in the military, we were in Okinawa, we were like, the only way to solve this back then, and I'm coming to find out they still do it now, was to perform a hysterectomy, where they take away what men deem to be the ladies, the females' womanhood, and that's the only thing that defines our womanhood. Then I feel sorry for the men. So I had a hysterectomy when I was 21, which meant they took away my ability to reproduce. Thank God I had already had my children at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say men are big babies, my husband at the time he wasn't whiny, but he was selfish.
Mm-hmm.
He was extremely selfish, because to him, it wasn't, oh my God, my wife, she's dying, she's bleeding. How do we make this better? I remember the one and only question that ever came out of his mouth. If he said anything else before it or after it, I really don't remember. The only thing I heard was, well, how will I know if she's cheating on me? Really?
That's a new one. That's
Exactly.
very unique. That's very unique.
How will I know if she's cheating on me? Excuse me? You wouldn't know it even if I still had a uterus and some ovaries. It's not like I'm going to wear a sign on my head, I'm cheating. But if he said anything precious before then or after that line, I never heard it. That's all I heard. I'm laying in a hospital bed. I'm dying. I'm facing the possibility of never having children ever again at 21. And that's your only concern? Really?
But I don't understand what he meant, though.
I don't either. And to this day, I don't understand it. We've been divorced I don't know how many years. And then in dealing with the lupus, it's I want to call it selfishness. And I can't blame anybody for it, because I think if I was in their shoes and I really didn't understand it, it would be, well, what am I supposed to do with this? It's not like it's a gift. It's not a curse, but it's not a gift either. And so I tell people, do your homework. Know what lupus is. If you're going to be the spouse to, be it male or female, anyone dealing with lupus, you need to do your homework. It's not an easy road. It's not an easy journey. It's not easy for the person dealing with the lupus. So my God, it can't be any easier for the person that has to look at you day after day with possibly your skin changing, your mood swings, your hair falling out, your teeth falling out, your body going through all of these changes at a random It's just random. It's not like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to have a flare, so I'm going to stay home and I'm not going to do anything in preparation of the flare. No, you can go about your everyday life. You can go about your everyday life, and then days later, a flare, weeks later, a flare. You can go for months without having a flare. You can go for years without having a flare. And then the slightest little thing can trigger it. Again, like I said before, after doing my research on it, it can be triggered by environment, medication, stress,
Mm,
pregnancy, any everyday life, any
yes.
everyday advent of life can trigger a flare.
And
Yesterday I was fine. Today I woke up because of the weather and we're in this freezing temperature. I couldn't figure it. My body just wasn't.
mhm.
It's like it's almost like an out of body experience. It's not my body. I don't know who it belongs to, but it ain't mine. And I'm going through all of this, and all I wanted to do was sleep, 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 sleep.
And you have been going through this over 30 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And he walked away. Did
Well,
he
he
walk
walked
away?
away. He walked away years ago, but um, in relationships subsequent to him, they're not able to handle it. They're really not.
Mhm.
Since he and I were divorced back in the late 70s, early 80s, I've been in 5 different relationships. One most recently, as of 2 years ago, and no one seems to be able to handle it.
Mhm. Mhm.
They just can't handle it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's too much for them.
I'm sorry to hear. I'm sorry to hear that, because I know that there are still men in the world who are willing to support a woman with a disease like lupus and even other diseases.
Hmm.
I am sorry to hear that. At this time, can you just use this minute to talk to people who are struggling, younger women and men who are just, who have been recently diagnosed, and also those who have been
Hmm.
living with lupus for years? Can you just use this time to just encourage them and just talk to them about some of the things that you have done that can help them too, even mentally?
Well, first of all, when I was first diagnosed, my doctors were like, well, you have to make a lifestyle change. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you can't do this. You can't. No problem, because I don't do it anyway. Never did. One of the things that has helped me get through this condition for this long, mind you, I must add that I stopped taking Western medicine for my lupus shortly after diagnosis. I think within a year after being diagnosed back in 1991, only because of the side effects of everything, of the
Mm-hmm.
medication. And I was able to, because I remember speaking to the doctor and I was like, listen, doc, I don't like what I'm feeling. I need to ask you a straightforward question. I need a straightforward answer. Because living with systemic lupus can be a debilitating, if not a life threatening, to the point of death. So I remember asking the doctor, listen, I need to ask you a straightforward question. I said, what are my chances with lupus staying on the medication that you have me on? He said 50-50. Okay. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
now I need to ask you another question. He said, sure. I said, what are my chances of living with lupus without the medication you have me on? He said the same 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow. And you know what I remember telling him? Me and my God, we got this.
Mm-hmm.
We got this.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a lot of people, it will entail not just, and I'm not saying not doing Western medicine is for everyone. It's really not. So please don't say Nanette said don't do, anybody listening. But
Mm-hmm.
the difference for me was lifestyle. I was a gym rat. I still kind of work out. I can't work out like I used to. I don't, I never smoked or drank.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 8, 9 years old, I threw my mother for a loop. I stopped eating beef and pork. And those are key factors. I stopped drinking um, whole milk, pasteurized milk. And back then it was not like you had this almond milk or this rice milk and stuff like that. We just went to skim milk back then. Or she would mix the carnation, water it down, and make a milk drink for me. So lifestyle is key. Lifestyle is key. For those of you who are on medication, I'm not saying to stop the medication. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Because if you've done the Western medication regimen up to this point, that would be a drastic change for your body. My lifestyle was entirely different from most folks once I was diagnosed. So to stop doing this, to stop doing that, you can't. That was easy because I wasn't doing it in the first place.
So I'm thinking your body was talking to you before.
Huh?
I'm thinking your body was talking to you
Yes.
before.
And that's what I've come to learn. While I was in my 30s, when I was first diagnosed, after doing some research, because while I was in college, one of my papers, I made it a point to do on lupus. Your body can start telling you changes even in your teen years. So when I think back to some things that I was going through when I was a teenager, I'm like, maybe not. Can't pinpoint it, but the possibility is there. And then again, one of the other contributing factors that I said is hereditary. When I look back at my mother's life, I'm wondering, because she was like, did I give this to you? I'm like, Ma, I don't think she even know what lupus is. And at the time, she really didn't. Mm-hmm. But when I think back of some of the things she was going through physically in her younger years, as I was a child growing up, I'm saying, possibly my mother had it, but nobody really knew what it was then. You know what I mean? So for the psychological part of it, get a grip. It's a long journey. It's a tedious journey. It is not one I would wish on my worst enemy, but only through the strength of God, strong prayers of your family. If you have a strong family support system, interloop them, get them in it. And if they're willing to work with you, fine. And those who are not, I would say, with no shade, sayonara, because if you can't go this journey with me, you are not meant to be with me, family or no family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nanette, thank you.
You're welcome.
A wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experiences. Thank you for sharing on GodScoop's raw and unedited stories. I'm sure not only those who are struggling with lupus, but women in general will benefit from your story. Thank you so much. You are a breath of fresh air.
You're welcome. I'm brutally honest in case no one got the message. I'm just brutally honest.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to our listeners, our audience, thank you for tuning in to Raw and Unedited Stories. And thanks for those who have already subscribed. If you did not, do it now. And if you have a story to share, leave your information in the description link below, and we will contact you. Have a phenomenal day.